Hello, welcome to Let Us Seek the Lord. This is a series of daily meditations on the glory of Christ, working systematically through the scripture, beginning with Genesis and going through Revelation. We'll be done in about 3.5 years. If you'd like more written materials on this, they can be obtained at amazon.com/author/J. Craig Chaffin. So we've got a long chapter today, so let's get started reading. We are today, it's January 29th, and we are in Genesis chapter 30. So reading from Genesis chapter 30. Now, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children, else I die." And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" So she said, "Oh, here's my maid Bilhah. Go in to her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I also may have children by her." Then she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as a wife, and Jacob went in to her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, "God has judged my case, and he has also heard my voice, and given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. Dan means in Hebrew judge. And Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed." And she called his name Naphtali. Now, Naphtali means a doe set free, so she felt like she'd been set free this time. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, "A troop comes." So she called his name Gad, which means a troop. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, "I'm happy, for the daughters will call me blessed." So she called his name Asher. Now Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field. And he brought them to his mother Leah. And then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you've taken away my husband? Would you also take away my son's mandrakes also?" And Rachel said, "Well, okay, therefore he will lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." And I lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, "God has given me my wages, because I have given my maid to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterward, she bore a daughter, called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and said, "God has taken away my reproach." So she called his name Joseph, and said, "The Lord shall add to me another son." And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go to my own place and my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service, which I have done for you." And Laban said to him, "Please stay, if I found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." Then he said, "Name me your wages. I'll give it." So Jacob said to him, "You know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was a little. It has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now, when shall I also provide for my own house?" So he said, "What shall I give you?" And Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you'll do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flocks today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep and the brown ones from the lambs and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in the time to come. When the subject of my wages comes before you, everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen if it's with me." And Laban said, "Oh, that it were according to your word." So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, and the female goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and he gave them into the hand of his sons. And he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob and the rest of Laban's flocks. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which had been peeled he set before the rocks in the gutters and the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they would conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaks, speckled and spotted. Then Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face toward the streaked and all the brown of the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves, and he didn't put them with Laban's flock. It came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger ones Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous, and he had large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Yesterday we began to contemplate how when God blesses, he adds no sorrow. And today we continue that. Rachel and Leah are constantly jockeying for Jacob's favor, particularly to bear him children. Sometimes it's hard in our culture to understand that, because their culture valued children so much greater than ours. And so it seems kind of weird that these two women would be jockeying to get children from Jacob, because we emphasize more the at least serially monogamous relationships. But through the process, Leah was obviously not Jacob's favorite. Yet God opened her womb and kept Rachel's womb closed for a time. So through the process of naming her children, we can learn that she sought to obtain Jacob's prime love by the children that she bore him. Why couldn't she be satisfied with just the blessing of her children? Now, it seems like a stupid question, but I think it's one we should ask. Do you ever struggle with feeling unloved? Leah did. I don't think she ever felt loved by her husband. Would her drive to be felt loved by her husband have been as strong if she felt loved by God and contented herself in that love and in the limited blessing of the children that he gave her? It's a question that should be asked. I don't know if I have an answer. Rachel, on the other hand, felt loved by her husband, but God closed her womb. She sought desperately to obtain children. She finally resorted to the same cultural lesson or solution that Sarah and Abraham had resorted to. So Rachel gave her handmaid to her husband for the night. And she obtained 2 sons by that method, but it didn't satisfy. Leah's sons found some mandrakes in the field. You know, in ancient cultures, mandrakes were considered to be love potions and magic charms. Oftentimes they had the shape of male anatomy, so that's why they were considered that. Rachel believed the mandrakes would bring her fertility. After Leah bore 2 more children, at least 2 years later, the Lord opened Rachel's womb. Do you suppose that Rachel realized that her mandrakes didn't work? If she had found her delight in the glory of the Lord, do you suppose her drive to have children would have driven her to bargaining for mandrakes? Or giving her handmaid to her husband? Now let's look at Jacob and Laban. They both wanted wealth. The Lord gave it to Jacob. Jacob came up with all kinds of schemes to make his livestock more productive. It was absolute foolishness. Laban sought to divert Jacob's financial growth by changing his wages, yet Laban grew weak in comparison to Jacob. It was all foolishness. But God blesses Jacob anyway. How much did Jacob miss? How much did he miss out on because of the foolishness of things that he's trying to do to make himself prosperous? I don't know. But I do know that the glory of God, that it is the glory of God, that he blesses Jacob anyway. He blesses Jacob anyway? That gives me hope. Even in my foolishness, he will bless me in a way that will accomplish his purpose. It's just how much pain I must endure because of my own foolishness. Do I content myself with his glory? Or do I add sorrow to his blessing because of my foolishness? That's the question for today. We do serve a glorious King. So speak his glory to someone today.